Chapter 026, Robot Ranger Basic Weaponry Studies. This section contained knowledge on the manufacture of basic firearms and melee weapons. It aimed to reduce the number of times basic firearm blueprints needed assembly and to accelerate weapon production efficiency. Basic Material Compendium. This was the core knowledge of the armament branch. The fundamental attributes of mechanical equipment depended on raw materials. Next-generation materials could even spark technological revolutions, elevating the overall quality of machinery by a significant margin. Many synthetic materials were prerequisites for advanced machinery. System Notification. You have learned 5 basic knowledge skills of the armament branch. You have comprehended the skills: Elementary Refinement, Overload, and Ranger Robot Blueprint. Elementary Refinement. This skill allowed the user to refine materials, enhancing their grade, despite being labeled elementary and simple. It was typically the primitive version of a core professional skill. Its advanced form, Molecular Refinement, could directly alter material properties using chi energy. Materials, like equipment, were graded, with higher quality materials being more valuable. Even materials of the same quality could vary in value. For instance, a common raw material, ironstone, cost 13 blue coins per pound. Refined into black ironstone, its value soared to 45 blue coins per pound. Both still categorized as gray quality, materials also possessed distinct properties. Metals suitable for energy transmission were unsuitable for armor plating. Overload. Active skill consumes chi energy to temporarily boost a machine's power by 30 to 50%, significantly increasing durability consumption. For example, the light power arm Harlan once used could have its attack and defense boosted by 30 to 50% when overload was activated. However, his 120 chi points would only sustain it for about 10 seconds. A burst damage ability. Finally, an active skill. Harlan was ecstatic. Mechanical type classes had very few active skills in the early stages. If he had possessed an active skill when escaping the budding organization, his escape wouldn't have been so desperate. Ranger Robot Blueprint. One of the easiest robot blueprints to obtain in the early game. Easy for him anyway. It was a low-end, multifunctional robot blueprint capable of mounting various devices and machinery for combat, reconnaissance, defense, support, and even self-destruction. Its versatility meant it lacked specialization, but offered significant modification potential. Harlan knew many guild logistics production teams used support-type rangers for surveying and mining. Some blueprints comprehended by mechanics already existed, while others were novel. The situation varied from planet to planet. Gaining so many skills for just 2 potential points was a huge win. Old Man Lou ambled over, his face full of curiosity. "You've been looking excited since just now. What you doing?" Harlan glanced sideways at Old Man Lou. "Don't you think you look out of place just wandering around here? Out of place? Why?" Old Man Lou looked down at his beach shorts and tank top, waved the liquor bottle in his hand, and burped, completely oblivious to any inappropriateness. Kira slammed down her welding torch, her face flushed and beaded with sweat from the heat. She rolled her eyes behind her protective goggles and said curtly, "Working hours. Loiterers, please take yourselves far, far away." "Rude brat," Old Man Lou muttered, taking another swig of liquor before sauntering out for a stroll, living the leisurely life. "Boss, do you fix things here?" No sooner had Old Man Lou left than a customer walked in. A middle-aged man. Harlan looked over and noticed the middle-aged man was also observing him. Their eyes met briefly before the man shifted his gaze. Harlan paused, then lowered his eyes, noting the middle-aged man's steady, powerful stride. Understanding dawned, but his face remained impassive. There was an 80% chance this man was an intelligence operative from Bureau 13. Here to test him, Kira greeted him, a polite customer service smile blooming on her face. "Hello, sir, what needs fixing?" "My car broke down, just down the road." The middle-aged man's eyes scanned past Kira, studying Harlan. "Okay, no problem." Kira reached for her toolbox, ready to head out, when the middle-aged man suddenly pointed at Harlan. "I'd like that young man to fix my car." Kira froze, a little deflated. Did she look technically incompetent? Was this sexism in action? "I'll take it." Harlan took the toolbox from a slightly resentful Kira. They walked out of the alley together. An old sedan was parked at the roadside. "This is the car." Harlan opened the hood, gave it a quick once-over, and then began repairs with tools from the box. The middle-aged man leaned against the car, pretending to make conversation. "Young man, you're not very old, are you?" "I'm 30. 30, are you blind?" The middle-aged man almost choked, his lips twitching. "What's your name?" "Young brother." Harlan didn't look up. "Before you ask someone's name, you should show some sincerity." The middle-aged man had no choice but to say, "My name is Felix." "Good name." Harlan's tone was flat, devoid of any real praise. Felix felt a pang of awkwardness. What was with that tone, like he was complimenting a dog's name like Lucky or Spot? And what was so good about his name anyway? "But you misunderstood me." Harlan rolled his eyes. "I just wanted a cigarette." Felix's face stiffened. He offered Harlan a cigarette and lit it for him. Harlan squinted as he puffed on the cigarette, then bent back over the car, working. "You can call me Harlan." Felix mentally noted the name, continuing his probing. "Harlan, you're not from West Capital, are you? Where are you fro?" "Fixed." Felix's prepared questions all choked in his throat. His expression like he was constipated. "What the hell? My probing had barely started. Did your skills have to be so damn good, you bastard?" Harlan expressionlessly held out his hand. "Hydraulic line was broken. 60 for the repair. Pay up." "Bullshit. Of course I know it's the hydraulic line. I did it myself." Felix forced a smile and pulled out his wallet. Deliberately slow, as if the wallet was bottomless, trying to stall for time to ask more questions. "Your skills are really impressive. Where did you learn them?" "Self-taught." "Oh, really impressive. Where are you from originally?" "The countryside." Harlan saw Felix fumbling for ages and raised an eyebrow. "Are you hinting I should give you a discount?" Felix coughed dryly, finally pulling out the money and handing it to Harlan. What else could he do? He couldn't just refuse to pay. He wondered if the organization would reimburse him. Harlan chuckled. "First time I've seen such a bottomless wallet. Thought you were going to be digging for half an hour." Felix swore to himself, if it weren't for the mission to test him, he wouldn't stay another second. Harlan whistled, picked up his toolbox, and sauntered back the way they came. Felix, utterly deflated, made a call. "Preliminary observation report. Target is a mechanic. Danger level currently unaccessible." Conversation lasted 4 minutes and 38 seconds. "Only information obtained is target's name, Harlan. Recommend further testing and investigation. Do not engage in conflict. Target personality analysis." Extremely unpleasant." Felix's tone was laced with resentment. Chapter 027. The Pursuers. The final test. The next few days were uneventful. Harlan maintained a regular routine. Going to Crow's junkyard in the morning to craft guns for Raccoon, getting paid daily, and scavenging usable mechanical parts to secretly build his Ranger robot. He stashed the completed components in his room, waiting to weld and assemble them once all parts were ready. The rest of the time, he stayed at the repair shop. Handling orders. The intelligence agencies hadn't given up on testing him. Different operatives came by 2 or 3 times a day. Kira, thinking business was finally picking up. Happily cooked 5 dishes and a soup every day to reward Harlan. Sometimes, when Harlan passed by her, he would overhear Kira muttering about expansion, chain stores, and the like, giving him the chills. He felt like he might have given the landlady some dangerous delusions. Old Man Lou occasionally loitered around Harlan, trying to discern his origins from his assembly techniques, but it was all in vain. Harlan was entirely self-taught. His methods were untraceable. Old Man Gao often came to challenge Old Man Lu to go matches. To be honest, Harlan didn't see what was so compelling about Go. Old Man Gao frequently struck up conversations with Harlan, and Harlan was happy to oblige. Slowly building rapport with him, among the skills of a mechanic, crafting provided the most experience, followed by enhancement, then repair, and finally, assembly was the least rewarding. Since he had no immediate access to advanced knowledge, Harlan used his experience points to level up his 3 skills closest to max level. Elementary Mechanical Affinity LV3, Basic Combat LV8, and Basic Shooting LV6, aiming to gain more potential points. Coincidentally, the job advancement requirement for Mechanical Novice was to comprehend Intermediate Mechanical Affinity, which required Elementary Mechanical Affinity to reach its maximum level of 5. Mechanical Affinity was the core skill for the mechanical class, a prerequisite for many blueprints and skills. 15 potential points might seem like a lot now, but they would vanish faster than water once you started spending them. He knew this all too well from bitter experience. If he hadn't squandered his potential points back then, he wouldn't have had to spend millions of INR, universal currency, on waters of oblivion from the magic civilization to reset his skills. Getting fleeced by those unscrupulous mage merchants, Crow's junkyard, Harlan operated the lathe, assembling a Type 73 Wasp pistol. Raccoon handed Harlan a stack of banknotes. Harlan didn't bother counting, just shoved them into his pocket. "That's it for today, I'm leaving. Thanks for your help these past few days. I don't need more guns for now. But the offer still stands. You can take any scrap metal here," Raccoon said with a fake smile. His words hinted at a temporary halt to their cooperation. His underling's weapon count had reached saturation, but it wasn't time to discard the donkey after it ground the mill. He coveted Harlan's gun-crafting skills, more than once imagining the immense profits if he mastered this technique himself. Raccoon was cautious. Harlan's easy gun-snatching display during their first meeting made him hesitant to act rashly. Plus, Harlan could always shake off trackers, so Raccoon hadn't dared to use force. He was very curious about the face behind Harlan's mask. Whatever. Harlan knew his side hustle had dried up. After some perfunctory pleasantries, Harlan left the junkyard. After a few turns, he routinely shook off any trackers and arrived at a large mechanical market. This place sold all sorts of metals and parts. Many West Capital Academy mechanical students also shopped here. Harlan had earned a side income of 70,000 blue coins. He bought all the materials for the Ranger robot and even extra materials for the light power arm. Money came fast and went faster, hauling the materials back to the repair shop. Harlan began to work in seclusion. Days later, all the parts were finished. Harlan assembled the Ranger robot in his room, standing at 1.2 meters tall. It was encased in thin armor plating, protecting the internal gears, precision components, wires, and power source. Its upper body was humanoid, with an oval head retracted into its torso. No neck, and a pair of mechanical eyes equipped with a simple remote control and imaging system. The chip was a commercially available, generic model with average processing speed. The torso had a pair of mechanical arms on either side. The elbows and shoulders had bearing torques, allowing rotation like human arms. The fingers were modified into gun barrels, covering a 170-degree firing arc in front. The waist could rotate 90 degrees left and right. Ammunition clips were located on both sides of the torso. The lower body was a tracked chassis, like a miniature tank. The system prompted him to name the finished product, following his habits from his previous life. Harlan named it Ranger I. System notification. Ranger I tracked type, robot quality, gray base attributes, armor value 800, defense 18. Power level 58, max movement speed 23 km/h, energy value 120/120 height, 1.18 meters weight, 143 pounds control method. Remote control, electrical signal transmission remote control radius. 50 meters power source, battery pack combat consumption, 8 energy/minute core power, 36/80 Onerite arm module, small caliber burst machine gun. Attack 35 to 40, fire rate 4 rounds/s, max fire rate 7 rounds/s, 10-second overload. Ammo capacity 30 plus 60 rounds, belt fed, output power 40, power consumption 18 left arm module. Small caliber burst machine gun, same as above attached ability. Self-destruct, causes 280 to 430 fire damage within a 30-meter radius, destroyed after use, attached ability. Metallic, 8% additional damage reduction against any damage except armor piercing. Note, don't underestimate this little guy just because it looks dumb. It can mess you up when you least expect it. Ranger was a general model designation. Different configurations of power systems, weapon systems, control systems, etc. resulted in various types. Most mechs, robots, and large machinery followed this naming pattern. Raw materials influenced the finished product's attributes. Ranger's main materials were steel alloy and as resin plastic, both common, ordinary materials. If Harlan had used higher-grade steel and alloys, Ranger's defense and armor value would be higher. Mechanical technology was interconnected and interdependent. Each component contained different technologies, if some components couldn't be manufactured himself. Ordinary parts could be purchased as replacements. As knowledge accumulated, the process of manufacturing machinery would become more flexible. Even the smallest screws could be crafted by oneself. The final products would become stronger generation after generation. For example, learning advanced control chip technology or advanced energy sources would allow him to change the robot's remote control mode and power level. This was the charm of the mechanical class. Any robot, vehicle, or mech had power output limits. Mounting new modules increased the power load. Stronger components and modules had higher loads. So accessories couldn't be added limitlessly. Only by upgrading energy technology could machines be upgraded and replaced. Ranger used conventional batteries for energy, which had low power output. Learning energy branch knowledge would enable him to manufacture energy sources himself. Completing Ranger, I immediately granted Harlan 24,000 experience points. Manufacturing provided the most generous experience rewards based on production cycle, finished product quality, and technological content. Harlan spent another day crafting the light power arm. Familiar with the process now, system notification. You have crafted light power arm, left. Gained 2,500 experience. The new light power arm was still a left-hand equipment. The materials used this time were simpler than the first, resulting in a lower quality grade. System notification. Light power arm, left quality. Gray base attributes. Attack 28 to 45, defense 8 to 12, power level 26, durability 205/205 equipment requirement, strength 23 attribute bonus, attack speed -4 length. 0.51 meters, elbow plus forearm plus hand, weight, 13.5 pounds attached effect, additional +6 strength check bonus. His strongest ability now was combat. The light power arm was the most suitable weapon. Mechanics who studied martial arts combat were called mech fighters. Harlan didn't intend to maintain this style permanently. After all, the strength of the mechanical class lay in ranged attacks. However, mech fighting was one of the strongest early-game combat styles for mechanics and could serve as a transition. Harlan hid the mechanical arm in his room and returned to the first floor. A customer was talking with Kira, his gaze occasionally drifting towards Harlan. Another intelligence operative. Lately, all the intelligence operatives disguised as customers had been stonewalled by Harlan. They had changed tactics. Now trying to gather information about Harlan from Kira. After seeing off the customer, Kira gave Harlan a peculiar look. "Why are so many people asking me about you?" "I'm popular, I guess, but they're all men." Harlan's face froze. "You've got the wrong idea." "Don't worry, I'm not prejudiced against you," Kira giggled. No matter how Harlan looked at it, that smile was just plain weird. "You've definitely got the wrong idea." Suddenly, Harlan's mind flickered. The system had a new notification. System notification. "You have triggered E-grade mission. Pursuit. Accept/decline." Harlan blinked, surprised. How was this mission triggered? Accept. Mission prompt. "Some have set their sights on your high bounty. Unseen, they harbor malice and are ready to strike. Meanwhile, certain agencies are awaiting your performance. What will you choose to do?" Mission objective. Successfully evade pursuit reward. 10,000 experience special reward. 1 skill upgrade card basic, evidently. Someone had targeted his bounty. The certain agencies in the mission prompt made Harlan roll his eyes. It was obviously Bureau 13, putting the two together. Harlan had a new theory. Maybe Bureau 13 deliberately leaked his information to a group of pursuers to test his combat abilities. If that was the case, these pursuers must have limited destructive capability and be easily controlled. Bureau 13 wouldn't tolerate large-scale destruction in the capital city. Nor would they easily leak his information. E-grade mission rewards were generally mediocre, but the special reward caught Harlan's attention. A skill upgrade card could immediately boost a skill of the corresponding grade by 1 level, which was very useful to him. Special rewards corresponded to hidden mission requirements. Clues were hidden in the mission prompts. Harlan believed the hidden requirement of this mission was to eliminate all pursuers. Enemies could appear at any moment. Best not to stay in the shop, Harlan thought. Since the pursuers weren't strong, he didn't want to rely on old man Lou's strength. After a moment's thought, a suitable battlefield popped into his mind. Crow's Junkyard. Chapter 028. Jealousy. Crow's Junkyard was Raccoon's territory. If he could confront the pursuers there, he might be able to eliminate Raccoon, a hidden threat, in passing. Harlan put down his work, called out to Kira. When she turned around, he said, "I'd like to take a day off." "Sure." Kira blinked, then suddenly asked, "Are you all right?" Harlan was taken aback. "Why do you ask?" Kira was perceptive. Harlan was usually listless and unmotivated, staring with dead fish eyes as if always daydreaming. But just now, his aura had instantly changed, and Kira had caught it. Kira struggled to describe that fleeting feeling. It was as if Harlan had suddenly become dangerous. "If you're having any trouble, I'll help you find a way," Kira said earnestly. Harlan stared into Kira's bright eyes for a long moment. Kira became slightly uncomfortable under his gaze. Turning her face slightly away and tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, joking, "It's rude to stare at a girl for too long, you know." Harlan withdrew his gaze. Saying, "I won't be back for dinner tonight." Kira sounded a little disappointed. "I was hoping you could try my latest culinary invention, pepper pineapple stewed kelp and pork ribs with cilantro." Harlan shuddered. What kind of dark cuisine was that? Taking a day off was easy. Harlan returned to his room, found a backpack to pack the mechanical arm. Wrapped Ranger Eye in dust cloth, placed it on a handcart, and headed for the junkyard. "Boss, is that kid the target?" A man in sunglasses quietly trailed Harlan. Whenever Harlan turned a corner or looked back, he instantly used his surroundings, crowds, public phone booths, newsstands, to conceal himself. Clearly, he was professionally trained. He wore a miniature earpiece, communicating with his teammates in an old car 2 streets away. 5 masked figures sat in the car. This group was the pursuer team targeting Harlan. They were mercenaries, moonlighting as bounty hunters, codenamed Hornet Squad. They had completed several missions and had a good reputation on the dark web. They had accidentally discovered Harlan's whereabouts. Hornet Squad realized this was a chance to grab a big score. The money was secondary if they could gain recognition from the budding organization. They would have found a powerful backer. That kid's worth $1 million, looks like a nobody. This is gonna be a piece of cake. The squad's second in command. A long-haired man scoffed, his tone part doubt, part contempt. Squad leader Kelly was checking his weapons. Hearing this, he said sternly, "This is the capital of Star Dragon. We need to be quick. Kill the target and get out immediately." Target has departed. A black, unmarked Jeep trailed Harlan from a distance. Inside the Jeep sat a Bureau 13 field team. Team leader Harvey was the person in charge of this operation. Felix was the operational advisor. 8 field agents wore full combat uniforms, equipped with tranquilizer guns. As Harlan had guessed, the Hornet squad pursuing him was indeed the final test, orchestrated by Bureau 13 through intermediaries. These agents' mission was to observe Harlan's performance in secret and, if necessary, intervene to eliminate the mercenaries and invite Harlan to the Bureau for a chat. Hornet Squad was a carefully selected pawn with limited destructive potential. Once they had served their purpose, Bureau 13 would clean up the mess. Felix switched screens, saying, "Harlan's route is towards Crow's junkyard in Sector 7. Hornet Squad is tracking the target. If combat occurs at the junkyard, the economic damage will be minimized." Bureau 13 had a clear picture of Raccoon's forces. Backers and all his background. If they wanted, they could make Raccoon disappear from the face of the earth at any time. National intelligence agencies had that kind of clout. In the eyes of ordinary people, Raccoon was a figure to be reckoned with, but compared to national agencies, there was no comparison. The setting sun slanted westward, plating the towering buildings of West Capitol in a layer of gold. Crow's junkyard. Raccoon was surprised to see Harlan arrive. Harlan usually came in the morning and left punctually after 2 hours. Never staying longer. "What was happening today?" "Came to your place to look for some materials." Harlan offered a casual excuse. Raccoon didn't suspect anything. He made a token offer to eat together. He hadn't expected the usually taciturn technician, Han, to agree, but Harlan immediately nodded, as if he had been waiting for the invitation. Raccoon was taken aback for a moment before reacting. Harlan took off his mask. Raccoon saw his true face for the first time. It looked vaguely familiar. But he didn't think too much of it. Although Harlan had a bounty on the dark web, that was a different level of conflict. Ordinary forces weren't privy to his background. Raccoon's influence was limited to his acre of land in Sector 7. He rarely logged onto the dark web and didn't have a deep impression of Budding's bounty. It was like the police issuing a wanted notice. Most people glanced at it and forgot. Harlan wore a mask to maintain secrecy, but now it was unnecessary. Bureau 13 wouldn't sit idly by and let his identity be exposed. They would help him deal with Raccoon. A banquet was set up in the junkyard's rest area. The two men sat down and made small talk. "Are the guns I made last time any good?" Type 73 Wasp, a pistol with a great reputation. Even the military uses them. Other arms dealers charge 6,000 or 7,000 for one, but you saved me a fortune. Raccoon sounded pleased, taking out a cigar cutter and snipping the end. Lighting it and taking a deep puff, praising, "And the weapons you make are far better quality than those second-hand goods." Harlan remained non-committal. While mass-produced standard products had guaranteed quality, they couldn't account for the subtle differences in each gun. These differences came from slight variations in the materials themselves. A skilled mechanic, crafting guns by hand, could make micro-adjustments and enhancements, adapting to the nuances of each gun. They had more life than mass-produced products. Experts who used guns regularly could feel this difference. To put it another way, it was like a custom-tailored suit being more refined. Raccoon noticed Harlan's bulky backpack and handcart he always carried. He asked curiously, "What's in there?" "Some parts." Seeing Harlan's reluctance to elaborate, Raccoon didn't press further. They chatted for a while. Outside, dusk was falling. The golden afterglow of sunset gradually yielded to the encroaching night. The boundary between twilight and night was a gradient of orange-red and blue-purple. The sky was dyed a dim gray by the last rays of sunlight. A subordinate suddenly ran in, announcing, "Boss, someone wants to see you. Tell them to get lost." "Can't you see I'm entertaining a VIP?" Raccoon frowned. The subordinate quickly whispered a few words in his ear. Raccoon's eyes flickered. He gave Harlan a meaningful look, then put on a smiling face. "Excuse me for a moment." With that, Raccoon rose from his seat and left. Harlan narrowed his eyes, thoughtful. Half an hour earlier. "Cousin, I finally made it to West Capital. I'm counting on you to show me the good life. You can't abandon me." Major trailed behind a yellow youth. Chattering incessantly, he had come to West Capital to rely on his cousin, hoping for a better life, but his cousin seemed to look down on him, sending him off to work as a cleaner. Major was far from satisfied. He kept pestering Yellow, trying to play the family card. He didn't dare push too hard, worried his cousin might kick him out. So his attitude was very obsequious. The yellow youth was thoroughly annoyed, scolding, "How many times have I told you, don't call me cousin outside?" Major grinned obsequiously. My bad, I'll slap myself." He proceeded to slap himself twice. "Look at your groveling face," Yellow sneered. "Only because of family ties did I let you guard the door in my territory. Do you know how many drifters are eating moldy food, and you still dare to be picky? I'm going to deliver supplies to a big shot this time. Don't follow me." "Big shot?" Major's eyes lit up. He asked ingratiatingly, "Who is it?" "The Sector 7 boss, my top dog, Mr. Raccoon," seeing Major's blank look. Yellow boasted proudly. "Apart from Sector 1, the other 7 sectors each have a boss controlling the sector's drugs and flesh trade, holding a gray industrial chain. Think about how high their status is." As they spoke, they arrived at the gates of Crow's junkyard. Major stubbornly followed. Yellow was about to blow his top again. Seeing this, Major didn't dare follow any further. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly turned his head and saw Harlan being greeted by Raccoon. He immediately froze. "Isn't that the kid I met during the smuggling trip?" A direct subordinate of Raccoon walked over, frowning. "Don't loiter here." Yellow instantly switched to a subservient smile, as if suddenly shrinking in stature, fawning. "I'm also Mr. Raccoon's subordinate, here to deliver supplies today." Major pointed at Harlan's back, asking, "Who is that person?" Yellow wanted to slap Major a few times, snapping, "Do you even have the right to speak here?" Raccoon's subordinate stopped Yellow, answering, "That's the boss's VIP guest." Raccoon's VIP guest. Major was taken aback, then felt a surge of imbalance. A wave of jealousy and humiliation. He toiled and moiled, relying on relatives, but it couldn't compare to even 1% of what that surnamed Han was getting. Why did that unappreciative kid get to live better than him? Scenes of his own boasting back on the smuggling ship resurfaced in his mind, making Major extremely embarrassed. "You know Technician Han?" Major stammered. "Not really know him. I just said a few words to him when we were smuggling." Raccoon's subordinate's eyes lit up. "Come with me, the boss wants to see you." Yellow and Major were dumbfounded. Chapter 029. Face Off. The two were led by Raccoon's subordinate into a room. Major looked uneasy, asking, "What do you need me to do?" "Don't worry, nothing bad. That guy's a mechanic, knows gun blueprints. Boss has wanted to make a move on him, but didn't know his background and didn't act rashly. We just need you to tell us about him." Major's mind immediately raced with possibilities, a hint of excitement bubbling up. Meeting Boss Raccoon was a golden opportunity. Maybe he could rise through the ranks and escape his current destitute fate. He glanced at his cousin Yellow, who now looked blankly envious. Betraying Harlan required no hesitation. They weren't related. Why should he care if Harlan died? After fidgeting for half an hour, Raccoon finally walked in. Yellow and Major quickly bowed. Major was too flustered and accidentally knocked over a chair. "You know Technician Han's background?" Raccoon's expression was impassive, making Major even more nervous, sweat beading on his forehead. he stammered. His name is Harlan, he's a drifter. Smuggled in with me. It's his first time in West Capital. No family, no friends. Raccoon's eyes flickered slightly. That's all. Major thought Raccoon wasn't satisfied. Racking his brains, quickly adding, oh right, when he entered West Capital, he had nothing, dressed in rags, looked penniless. Very good. Raccoon turned to leave. Major was quick on the uptake, respectfully saying, as long as boss is satisfied. Raccoon paused, a faint smile playing on his lips. You're not bad. From now on, follow me. Major's eyes widened, ecstatic. I've made it once Raccoon left. Yellow rushed up, fawning. Major, I'll be relying on your good graces from now on. Now it was Major's turn to have the upper hand. He glanced sideways at Yellow, putting on airs. What did you just call me? Cousin brother. The roles of Yellow and Major had instantly reversed, and Yellow was completely natural about it, not feeling ashamed in the slightest. Major's vanity was satisfied. He patted Yellow on the shoulder, beaming, then thought for a moment before asking the Raccoon subordinate beside him, Brother, may I be so bold as to ask? What's boss going to do with Harlan? No need to ask. Of course we'll capture him, torture him, force him to write out the gun blueprints. Once we have the blueprints, we can train our own gunsmiths, then we'll silence him. That's good then. Major felt relieved. Less than 3 minutes later, Raccoon returned to the table. Glancing at the untouched dishes, a fake smile plastered on his face. Harlan, right? Looks like you know my name. Harlan sensed the storm brewing. His face remained impassive, but he quietly slipped his hand into his backpack, fumbling for the light power arms socket and clicking it into place. It tightened with a snap. Ready to activate at any moment. Only then did he feel a little more at ease. Although he came to Crow's junkyard to set a trap for Raccoon, he was used to being cautious. He had learned his lessons. Back when he first started playing Star C, Harlan was still a greenhorn, treating NPCs like the rigid programs in other games. Acting recklessly, only to fail miserably a dozen times. Even a So would learn to be careful after that. How exactly did he fail? Getting spawn-camped by players. Harlan could still tolerate, but getting spawn-camped by NPCs for 3 days? Stop. People who talk about dark history should be dragged out and… Never mind. Raccoon tapped his fingers lightly on the table, slowly saying, Hess, I've been guessing your background. Never thought you were just a drifter who just arrived in West Capital. Gotta say, you're very careful. It's only today that I found out your real deal. So, Raccoon's face turned cold, flipping faster than a book. Be smart and hand over all the detailed gun-making techniques. Having learned that Harlan was alone and helpless, Raccoon finally decided to act, tearing off the mask of false friendliness, revealing the fangs hidden beneath the smiling face. Discarding the donkey after it ground the mill, no sense of camaraderie at all. What camaraderie do I have with you? We're just in a business deal. Aren't you afraid I'll suddenly lash out and kill people? Harlan grinned. Raccoon sneered, snapping his fingers. The 4 subordinates beside him drew pistols, pointing them at Harlan. You think I wouldn't come prepared? It's ironic, the guns pointing at you right now are all made by you. 6 armed thugs in total. Raccoon and 4 subordinates across the table and 2 guarding the door behind him. In this confined space, Harlan's dodging room was limited. Harlan didn't move. Slowly saying, even if I hand over the techniques, you'll still silence me. Raccoon sneered. That was exactly what he intended. Only things possessed by a select few had value. And he knew the principle of cutting weeds at the root. I hope you cooperate. At least you can avoid some physical pain. What if I don't cooperate? Some of my men are very good at interrogation. You'll talk sooner or later. Harlan suddenly dropped his lazy demeanor. The sharp glint in his eyes made Raccoon's heart skip a beat. You think I have nowhere to run? Raccoon noticed Harlan's left hand was still in his backpack. He shook his head. Maybe there's something you're relying on in your backpack. But the moment you make a move, my men will open fire. What if I told you there are high explosives in the bag? The backpack was only opened a crack. No one could see what was inside. Raccoon scoffed. He didn't believe such nonsense. Major's appearance was purely accidental. Harlan couldn't have prepared in advance. Who was he kidding? Harlan said unhurriedly. I don't know who told you my background, but clearly that person's knowledge of me is limited. You can try opening your computer, going to the dark web, and looking for the latest bounties. Raccoon frowned. Harlan's confident demeanor made him feel uneasy, although he had some influence in West Capital. In the entire underworld, he was just a small-time local tyrant, narrow-minded, unqualified to get involved in dark web affairs, so he rarely paid attention to the dark web and wasn't aware of Budding's bounty. Raccoon thought this was just Harlan's delaying tactic. Besides, as a boss, how could he just do whatever he was told? Wouldn't he lose face? Harlan leisurely said. You don't believe me, then do you want to gamble? Life is always full of surprises. Explosives can maximize their destructive power in such a confined space. First, the explosion. Shrapnel will shoot out with the shockwave, covering every corner, more powerful than bullets. Then, the high-temperature flames will ignite the house. Everyone here will be burned alive. But don't worry, you won't be burned to death, because you'll already be dismembered by the shrapnel from the first explosion. The subordinates behind Raccoon couldn't help but take a step back. Harlan's words were so matter-of-fact, they were scared. Raccoon barked, enough. I'm not in the mood to joke around with you. Stand up obediently, or I'll have my men open fire. Harlan shrugged, sighing. Can't we negotiate? I'll hand over the blueprint. Just then, the last sliver of sunlight sank below the horizon, and night dominated the sky. Halfway through his sentence, Harlan erupted without warning. His left hand clenched into a fist, the mechanical arm like a beast awakened from slumber. The backpack tore apart, sending fabric scraps flying everywhere. He flipped the table in front of him, pots, bowls, plates, soup, and dishes flying at Raccoon and his 4 thugs. Negotiate? No way did you actually believe that. 4 in front, 2 behind. Harlan made his decision. He flipped the table to block the frontal firepower. The upright table formed a temporary shield. Then he turned and strode towards the door. The mechanical arm was held in front, his momentum fierce, his posture like a charging cavalryman. Clang. Bang, crash, the overturned table smashed into the 4 thugs. Raccoon's forehead was bleeding from being hit by a plate. He clutched his wound, roaring. Fire! At this moment, only the 2 thugs at the door could fire. Gunshots erupted. Chapter 030. The might of the Ranger. Bullets from the front pinged and clanged against the mechanical arm. Durability rapidly dropping. A stray bullet hit Harlan's shoulder, taking away 16 health points. Harlan felt a slight pain, but didn't care much. He had high endurance and tough muscles. The bullet lodged in his flesh, unable to penetrate further. A streak of blood bloomed on his clothes. The mechanical arm slammed heavily into a thug's chest. Thump! His chest caved in, dead before he hit the ground. Harlan grabbed the other thug as a meat shield. At this point, the 4 thugs behind Raccoon finally stood up and started firing. Bullets rained down on the meat shield, instantly turning him into a sieve. Harlan arched his back muscles. Huge force exploded, directly snapping the door lock. Snap! The door spun off its hinges, flying out. Screws clattered to the ground like jumping metal sprites. Harlan turned and ran out. Chase him! Raccoon roared. Footsteps echoed throughout the junkyard as dozens of thugs patrolling elsewhere rushed over at the sound of gunfire. Crow's junkyard was Raccoon's base of operations. Enemies everywhere. Every step was fraught with danger. Harlan encountered a wave of reinforcements at the cost of another 20 durability points on the power arm. He violently hammered them to death, seizing a pistol. With a ranged attack weapon, Harlan immediately shed the disadvantage of close combat, right hand holding the pistol. Ready to fire at any moment, left hand power arms supporting the gun barrel for aiming, crouching forward, standard tactical movements, able to react quickly. Basic shooting plus precision shooting modified his gun accuracy. In encounters, Killing enemies in no more than 2 shots became routine. Harlan's reaction was lightning fast, always firing before the thugs could react. 1 shot to the body to interrupt the enemy's attack, then instantly a slight upward flick of the muzzle, 1 shot to the head. The interval was no more than 0.5 seconds, accurate and swift, not a single shot missed. If surrounded by multiple enemies, Harlan rolled, dodged smoothly, counterattacking and shooting enemies frequently. The only limit on Harlan was bullets. Every time he killed a wave of enemies, he searched the bodies to replenish his ammo. Fighting to sustain himself, his path was littered with corpses, bloodstains shocking to the eye. Raccoon was horrified. 1 person effortlessly killed more than 20 of his men. But there were just too many thugs, swarming from all directions, gradually forming an encirclement, suppressing him with firepower, making it difficult for him to even peek out. Harlan hid behind the shell of a derelict car. Dozens of gun muzzles flashed fire in the night. The dense sound of bullets hitting the cover was so loud he couldn't even hear his own breathing. Only able to occasionally return fire. Good thing this is my territory. No matter how good he is, he's just 1 person. He'll be caught sooner or later. Raccoon thought fiercely. Once he caught Harlan, he would make Harlan regret being born into this world. Just as he thought this, an unexpected event suddenly occurred. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Rapid submachine gun fire erupted, like a torrential storm, with a sweeping murderous intent, cutting into the battlefield from the side. Mowing down a large swath of thugs like wheat, screams of agony rose and fell. Hornet's squad, cloaked in the night, charged into the battlefield, each armed with a submachine gun. Running and dodging, advancing and retreating with order, their agile skills displaying rich battlefield experience. Raccoon's men couldn't even organize a decent counterattack before being scattered and fleeing in panic. Where did these mercenaries come from? Raccoon was shocked, thinking these mercenaries had come to kill him, maybe coveting his territory or maybe for a vendetta. Just as he was lost in wild speculation, the next development left him utterly bewildered. The aggressive mercenaries suddenly turned, charging towards Harlan on the other side. Not even glancing at him, these ruthless mercenaries, their target was actually Harlan. Raccoon's eyes widened like copper bells. People who mixed in the gray areas understood a principle. You could tell a person's level by the enemies they made. These mercenaries were taking risks to act in West Capital. The reward from their backer must be commensurate with their risk. Judging from this, Harlan was definitely no ordinary person. Raccoon remembered what Harlan had said. You can try opening your computer, going to the dark web, and looking for the latest bounties. Could what Harlan said be true? What on earth was his background? Submachine gun fire. Harlan's ears twitched. The mission targets had finally appeared. Using the muzzle flashes, he pinpointed Hornet Squad's location. 300 meters west, 6 people, 6 submachine guns. Harlan calculated quickly. The enemy's firepower was fierce. Head-on confrontation would definitely put him at a disadvantage. Good thing I was prepared and brought Ranger Eye. Harlan secretly rejoiced, pulling out a remote control with a screen from his pocket. This was the Ranger Eye remote control he had personally made. Ranger Eye's chip was a generic model he bought off the market. Simple to operate, only needing to input simple programs to create a remote control. Turning on the power, a messy static current sound lasted for 2 seconds. The robot's eye imaging device connected to the remote control, and everything it saw was displayed on the screen. At this moment, the screen displayed a "out of remote control range" prompt. The previous battle had taken Harlan beyond the 50-meter radius control range. Harlan decisively got up, using the darkness of night to run back the way he came. Hornet Squad's submachine guns immediately swept over. His movements were erratic, using the junkyard's ubiquitous obstacles and large pieces of junk for cover. Weaving through the hail of bullets. Damn it, too much cover here, Hornet Squad's long-haired man cursed, expertly swapping magazines. He runs faster than a rabbit. Originally, Hornet's squad planned to assassinate Harlan, but Harlan had started fighting with Raccoon first. On second thought, maybe they could use the gangland shootout as cover for their mission. So they had brazenly attacked. He's already fled in disarray. Hurry up and chase him down to finish him, Kelly yelled. After the previous sweep, Raccoon's thugs had lost morale. Fleeing with their heads in their hands, no one hindered their actions. Seeing Harlan fleeing in disarray, Hornet's squad became even more fearless, growing more aggressive. Harlan, sprinting, ducked his head. A strand of hair was severed by a stray bullet, dancing in the air in the wind of his passage. He slid, crossing two car shell obstacles. Hiding behind cover, the rest area wasn't far ahead. The remote control in his hand finally showed he had entered the control range. The screen connection was successful. Activate. In the chaotic rest area, the dust cloth on the handcart suddenly twitched. Two red lights flashed on Ranger Eye's eyes. The engine whirred to life. The tracks began to turn. Harlan controlled Ranger Eye, driving it out of the rest area. At this moment, Hornet's squad wasn't far from him. Ranger Eye's armor might not withstand the concentrated fire of 6 submachine guns. Head-on confrontation was too risky. His advantage lay in surprise. No one would guess he had robot backup. Ambush was the best choice. Harlan looked around. His eyes lighting up. He found a suitable ambush spot. Not far away, 2 car shells formed an angle, a blind spot, conveniently located on Hornet's squad's likely path. Harlan controlled Ranger Eye to hide in the angle, holding his breath, waiting for the perfect moment. The junkyard environment was noisy, gunshots continuous. Ranger Eye's engine sound was drowned out by the din, barely attracting attention. Only Kelly sensed a hint of unease. This was intuition he had developed through countless brushes with death. He paused, saying, "I feel like something's not right. What did you find?" The long-haired man asked. "That's the problem, I haven't found anything." "Nothing will go wrong. The target's been forced into a dead end. He's done for." The long-haired man confidently set a death flag, just as he finished speaking. Hornet's squad stepped into Ranger Eye's firing range. At the same time, Harlan's eyes gleamed, and he lightly pressed the fire button. BRRRRT, BRRRRT, BRRRRT. BRRRRT, BRRRRT. Ranger Eye's fingergun barrels spat out fierce fire and smoke. A steel barrage poured out. The approaching shadow of death froze the expressions of every member of Hornet's squad. System notification. Your mechanical creation, Ranger Eye track type, has killed a mercenary. You gained 800 experience. X3.